J. Reed.
Sometime in the next 12 months, we will see the new Porsche Boxster, and for the first time, it'll be fully electric. When Porsche does this, we should sit up and take notice, because this is a sports car company at its heart, and they only make two models of sports car. The smaller Boxster / Cayman, and the 911, which, for that model, Porsche have said that it will be the last model to go electric, if at all, and let's all pray for clean synthetic gasoline replacements by then. As I've said many times in the past on my channel, Porsche make the very best sports cars in the world. So why should we worry? Shouldn't we just trust them to do their thing? Or is anybody else worried that taking one of the two of their sports cars electric is still a risk? I mean, the early adopters did their thing and extolled the virtues of electric cars, but now there's a dip as people consider adjusting their way of doing things to this new model. And I'm not sure at all that they will cross the chasm into mass adoption. And we're seeing a dip in new cars being sold, and used cars are depreciating like nobody's business. Not to mention that the CEO of the leading electric car company seems to be a bit of a pillock. But we are not here to talk about the overall market appetite for electric cars. I want to talk about why I'm worried about the new Porsche Boxster specifically. And to do that, we have to start with what made Porsche sports cars the greatest sports cars. And to my mind, it comes down to three things. Lightness. Despite the 911 getting a lot bigger and you'd think a lot lardier, in fact it hasn't. Take my old 911. The 996.2, made from 2002. That weighed in around 3,200 pounds. If you buy a brand new 992.2 now, it still only has a curb weight of just under 3,400 pounds. The flat six engine. If you're on this channel, then I need say no more. The evocative sound of any flat six engine and the way it delivers its power is a way of life for Porsche enthusiasts like us. Whether you're a deviant stitching, carbon fibre underpants water-cooled guy, or one of those adenoidal air-cooled purist types, the flat six has endured. Quirkiness. Putting the engine in the back, painting it lurid green, and then applying deck chair upholstery on the seats are some of the hallmarks of Porsche ownership, even if they now charge an arm and a leg for pretty much everything that originally made them great. But specifically, what makes the Boxster itself great, and why is it better than the 911 for most people? Firstly and foremostly, anyone that has ever driven one will tell you that it is its balance. They're mid-engined. They're handled in a way that make you think that it's not trying to kill you with no notice. There's no pendulum effect. When I had my 986 version of the Boxster, one of the very best driving days I've had in my life was chasing my friends in their 911s around the countryside of Tennessee and North Carolina. And I'm not kidding you. It was such a wonderful handling car that sounded great and had everything I needed on that day. Total bliss. It's a proper sports car. It is a small two-seater with an open roof and great handling and nimbleness, and with manual gearboxes. The Brits started this, but the Japanese and Germans perfected it. Like so much of everything the Brits start and then mess up. Whereas the 911 is much more of a GT car than it was. Much bigger than it used to be, although still fairly light though, as we talked about earlier. The next factoid that makes the Porsche Boxster great is its value for money. Cheaper than a 911 and actually a better sports car. Deliberately stunted by Porsche so that it couldn't compete with the 911, and we'll come back to that later. However, once Porsche puts its mind to it and takes the shackles off, you get a car like the GT4 RS Cayman, which is the very best sports car on the market in my opinion. Full stop. And if you have one and would like to make a video with me, here is my email address. I'd love to drive that car. So, to move on then, here's what I'm not worried about for the new EV Boxster. It'll look great. It always does, and they always have. They'll still be quirky. They'll still be built wonderfully. The fit and finish of the modern Porsches has evolved so well since the days of my 2003 911. Chalk and cheese in comparison. But here's why I would wait to see what the new EV Boxster is like before I ordered one. The big one for me is weight and what they do with it and where they put it. In order to get acceptable range, a certain number of batteries will have to be used, and they're heavy. If in order to reduce the weight, the number of batteries are reduced, then that limits the range. Or, to put it another way, if range is kept high and the weight is then increased, then the balance of the car, currently 55% to the rear, will be destroyed and it won't handle. We have some clues about the weight of the new EV Boxster from Porsche too, given the new base model Macan EV, that no one expects to handle well because it's an EV, weighs nearly half a tonne heavier than its gas counterpart and can manage a range of 308 miles. Next, one of my worries with an EV is that the batteries will not age well. My iPhone, for example, is 3 years old and now will only charge to 85%. Do that in a Tesla and they are over $20,000 to replace. So one only wonders what Porsche will charge, given they charge $14,000 for special paint. It's also part of why everyone with money buys a Carrera GT rather than the 918. 10-year-old batteries, anyone? Even Porsche knows this. Just look at the blurb on their website about how long they expect their batteries to last. You can pause this to read it in full, but the long and the short of it is that they expect the majority of Macan EVs to retain 70% of their battery's capacity for the first 8 years. So if we assume that 70% is the number, then this means that an 8-year-old Macan will do just 215 miles of range, and that's not very much. I suggest therefore that these cars will depreciate faster than gas cars. Remember too that Porsche can't just put a load of power into it and make it quick in a straight line, because then it will compete with the 911. So if I were a betting man, then I think that it won't have a lot of range. Next, network for charging. Porsche doesn't have the same charging network as Tesla, and it isn't as good. And lastly, the lack of a manual box will surely sterilise it. So, a heavy and/or rangeless sports car with performance that is guaranteed to be inferior to the 911 and which doesn't have a manual gearbox or a flat six engine. What do you think? Are you looking forward to this car? Have you ordered one? Let me know in the comments. Thanks so much for listening to my rant. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you'll consider subscribing as well to this channel. Lots more Porsche stuff to come. We're going to be back on the 928 in the next video, don't worry. But thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.